Welcome to Soul Soil, a podcast where we slow down, get still, and tend to the deeper parts of who we are. I'm your host, Latoya Cooper, and this is a space for women who are ready to grow, not just on the surface, but from the inside out. Here we talk about holistic wellness, healing rhythms, and soul-centered living. Because just like the earth, we thrive when our roots are nourished. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin. Hey friends, welcome back to Soul Soil. Today's episode is an invitation to breathe, to slow down and tune into the rhythm that already lives within you. Now let me ask you something. How's your heart today? And I don't mean your to-do list or your latest goal, but I'm talking about your heart. Because today we're diving into a conversation about rhythm. And it's not the kind that lives on your playlist. I'm talking about the kind that your soul recognizes. The rhythm that God created you to move in. The one that aligns with peace, not pressure. We're talking about how to find your flow with God and yourself and what it means to live in divine timing, even when the world wants you to rush. So let's start here. What does rhythm even mean? Because we often confuse rhythm with routine. The routine is what you do. You get up in the morning and you have certain things that you do. But rhythm is how you move, and it's the flow underneath the doing. Rhythm is spiritual, it's relational, it's embodied, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, and this is an example of what I'm kind of talking about. You have the same routine, and you can do the same routine 2 different days, 2 different mornings. You get up and you have your same routine. But have you ever done your routine and you just still felt a little disconnected, like you didn't feel like you really got as much from it as you normally do, and you just didn't feel that little pep in your step, and you didn't feel like it set you ready for the day. You just still felt a little off, not quite centered and grounded. That's because of the rhythm. It's possible that, I don't know, maybe you're running a little behind, or maybe you have things on your mind that you have to get done, and it's affecting the rhythm of how you move. So you're not exactly getting what you normally would get from that routine. Because, when it comes to rhythm, it's not something that you create. It's something that you tune into. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says that there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And that's rhythm. God set this life to a divine tempo. We have seasons, we have pauses. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. We have day, we have night. The seasons change. But we've learned to override that tempo with urgency, and we forget that we were made to move with God, not ahead of Him. So I want to go ahead and give you your first moment for reflection. What season are you in right now? Are you in a time of planting, waiting, of harvesting, resting? Sometimes your spirit is craving rest, but your busy schedule just says hustle. And it's in that tension that we lose our rhythm. So just maybe thinking about, okay, how do you know when you're out of rhythm? There are a few signs. For one, you're constantly tired. Even after you rest, you're still tired. Another thing is you feel like you're always behind, even though you are doing the most. You just feel like you're just not getting ahead. You're forcing productivity just to feel worthy. I'm guilty of that. You're praying, but you're not making time to be still and listen. You're serving, but your spirit feels dry. Does any of that sound familiar? I've been there too. There was a season, as a matter of fact, right before I started this podcast, I was coming out of a season when I was saying yes to everything. every opportunity, every event, every request. And I just told myself that, hey, I was just doing what I needed to do, to take care of my family, right? But in reality, I was um, I was more being driven by fear. Like that's the truth of it. The fear of missing out, fear of not doing enough, fear that if I stopped, everything would fall apart. Okay, so I was basically overcompensating. But God lovingly showed me that I'm not behind. I'm just out of rhythm. So I needed to come back to Him, find that center within Him. And here's a question that I want you to pause with. Are you uh, are you moving because you feel led or because you feel pressured? All right, so let's talk about what flow looks like. Because flow with God isn't about ease in your circumstances. It's about being in alignment, in your spirit. And you may not know what's coming next, but your soul feels at peace in the waiting, in the not knowing. There's a version of you that doesn't need to rush, to prove, or to push. And that version moves to the rhythm of grace. Matthew 11:28 through 30 in the Message translation says, "Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." Did you catch that? Unforced. That's flow. Okay? Now, when you're in rhythm with God, you know which doors to walk through and which ones to leave closed. You stop striving and you start listening. You trust that even rest is productive when it's in alignment with the Spirit. So, if you're feeling out of sync, I want to talk about a few ways to get you back into rhythm. All right. So, first, let's break it down and talk about some spirit led rhythms. For one, Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Make space for rest, not just naps, but rest that honors God. And you can do that by honoring Sabbath, whether that means going to church and worship or just making extra time in your word, just honoring that day. Prayer, of course. Prayer, and it can be a simple prayer. It can be just, Lord, I trust your timing. And then morning stillness. That's a way to find your way back. Check in with your soul before you check in on your phone. And of course, there's always journaling. Ask yourself, what am I feeling today? And just write it down. And then there's body awareness. Those types of body ways that you can use body awareness to find your flow. Notice tension in your body. I know for myself, I tend to hold tension in my inner thighs, so I have to be mindful of that. But are you clenching your jaw, or are your shoulders tense? Pay attention to that, and also to how your breath is flowing. Okay, be mindful of those things. And ask yourself in decision making, is this flow or is it force? I was recently contacted about an opportunity to create content for, to create a specific type of content. And what they were offering financially was really good. It was really good. And when I was initially asked, at first my mind went to yes, because in the past, the old me would have normally said yes to this type of opportunity and wouldn't have even thought about it. And so I kind of went there at first, but then I had to bring it back because I had to really think about it and be honest with myself. If I saying yes to this, this is not flow. It will definitely be forced because number one, I know that I don't have time. And number two, I don't even feel aligned with this. I don't feel aligned with this. And so, it was hard to turn down, but, I had to honor myself, and I didn't want to throw myself into a place where, once again, I'm spiraling in this life of commitments that I don't even feel comfortable with. I want to stay in that flow. So In making decisions, make sure that you take a moment to ask yourself, you know, does this feel like flow? Is this flow, or is this force? And make sure that you are be emotionally honest. God isn't emotionless. We see situations in the Bible, we see that he feels, happiness, or, he can be pleased with us. He has expressed anger, grief, so he isn't afraid of our frustration or impatience. Tell him, God, I'm tired of waiting, and he'll meet you there. Remember that rhythm is not performance, it's presence. So, friend, if you've been rushing, forcing, striving, I just want to remind you that you're allowed to slow down. God isn't watching the clock. He's watching over right here, your heart, okay? And his pace for you is peaceful, and his rhythm includes rest. So I'm going to leave you with this affirmation. My peace is protected by God's grace. If this episode spoke to you, send it to someone you know who is in a season of overwhelm, and let them know that they are not behind. They just need to find their flow again. If you're not already, make sure that you are following this podcast on your favorite platform. Make sure you leave us a review so that more people will have access to this information, people who may need this type of information. Until next time, may you move with grace and live in rhythm. See you soon.